What to do when a patient refuses your diet recommendation, even if they aspirate everything. A doctor once told one of my patients they would likely die if they refused my diet recommendations and continued to eat whatever they wanted. My heart sank. At the time, part of me feared that it was the truth, and I couldn't bear the thought of my patient aspirating anything. But I was also witnessing a human being told that their greatest pleasure in life wasn't allowed. Was that the right way to go about that situation? I'm going to discuss the 3 things you should do when a patient chooses not to follow your diet recommendations. Let's dive in. I'm Theresa Richard. I've been a medical speech pathologist for 15 years. I'm a board-certified specialist in swallowing and swallowing disorders. I'm the founder and CEO of the MedSLP Collective and MedSLP Education. Number 1, SLPs should be documenting informed consent. According to Horner et al. In 2016, SLPs have fiduciary and other ethical and legal obligations to patients. It is crucial that we understand how to present the patient's conditions and treatment options in an objective manner to allow the patient to make the appropriate decisions for their own care. When treating patients, they should give you their consent to provide the service. They should have a general understanding of the benefits and any potential risks. Informed consent is usually performed with a third party present, such as a social worker. While performing informed consent, it's important to state who was in attendance and the reason for the consent. You then document the instrumental assessment that was performed and the physiological deficits that were discovered, and from here you can now list out the possible options that the patient may choose from and include the risks and benefits of each decision based on the clinical data that you currently have. Once the patient and their family has decided which option they would like to choose, write it down and also discuss the plan of care going forward. Remember about 5 years ago, I was doing a FEES on a patient who was in his 90s and he really did not care about much anymore. He wanted to just really focus on his quality of life with lots of social interactions, and he wanted nothing to do with our diet recommendations. His family was particularly aggressive, and I remember just being really scared and not wanting to work with this patient and his family. I tried to explain the results of the swallow study to the son, and he got very angry because he said there was no way his father would go along with it. I said, that's okay, we can get a care plan meeting, and I would like to invite the social worker, and we'll discuss more in depth what we saw, and you and dad can decide what course of action you want to take. And if it's nothing, that's okay too. His demeanor immediately changed, and he said, you mean we actually have a choice? Yes, you do. I was still pretty terrified going into that meeting where I led the informed consent discussion, but both the son and the father were so grateful that we had this conversation, and they were happy to hear the results of the swallow study and have some answers for his medical condition, but also were very appreciative that they had a choice in his care. Point number 2. Diet waivers do not hold up in court and should not be used in any medical setting. Diet waivers are seen as alleviating the facility from liability, but in reality, they can be viewed as a form of coercion. Sign here or else. The Patient Self-Determination Act that was enacted in 1990 gives patients the ability to direct their own care. So yes, although we do work with patients that have dementia or other cognitive concerns, we don't want to just let them sign a waiver and be done with it. Gather your team together at the facility and the patient and the family and do informed consent. If you're still working in a facility that uses diet waivers, see if you can gather the administrative team, present the research on why waivers really do not reduce liability for the facility and can actually cause more harm than good to the facility and the patient and their family. Do you have any stories about dietary recommendations from patients that you'd like to share, or any questions about this topic? If so, leave them in the comments below. I'll also be posting other videos just like this one that you won't want to miss, so make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. The last point I want to make about what to do if a patient refuses your diet recommendations is to do nothing. Patients have the right to make up their own decisions about their care. This is obviously a much more nuanced concept, but there's 2 ways to go here. The patient may not want to consume the diet that you recommend, and that's okay. You can still work on treating their swallowing just as you would if they were consuming the diet that was recommended. The other part of the conversation is perhaps backing up and involving the patient in the decision-making process in the first place. I always squirm when I hear diet recommendations because I believe these should be made in conjunction with the family and patient to begin with, instead of just something we put on the patient or something that we do to a patient. So I want to share a little story with you about a swallow study that I took my son to recently, and I was really terrified about those recommendations getting back to the school, because what if it just took away his ability to eat lunch with his friends and just flipped everything upside down. So I was so nervous about this diet recommendations part of the study. When we got there, I expressed my feelings to the SLP and I just said, can you please just talk about the recommendations with me before you send them over to the school? I just want to make sure that I fully understand why you're recommending what you are, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page. And she just said to me, Theresa, I'm not going to make any recommendations without your input in the first place. We're going to see what we saw on the swallow study and we're going to make the decision together. So I'm not going to make any recommendations to you without us talking about it and coming to a mutual decision. And that just felt so good to me. And I was just so happy that we could do that. And I think so many times in our field, and I think with so many patients, we would eliminate so much grief and so many issues with administration too, if we just had these conversations and made these recommendations with our patients instead of for them. I've got a free gift for you at MedSLPcollective.com. Check out our free MedSLP Collective clipboard kit for access to editorial reviewed resources about more of the various conditions that we treat. To access your own free copy, head over to MedSLPcollective.com/enroll, where we have a robust and vibrant community of SLPs and mentors to help you out with your toughest clinical questions. Link is in the description below.